My parents turned me and my twin sister into weapons against each other from birth, but when I discovered the sick reason why they did it, I realized our entire childhood was an experiment that destroyed both our lives forever. Being an identical twin should have meant having a built-in best friend, someone who understood you better than anyone else in the world. Instead, my sister Maya and I grew up as strangers living in the same house, competing for scraps of attention from parents who seemed to enjoy watching us tear each other apart. From my earliest memories, everything was a competition. Who could walk first? Who could talk first? Who could read first? Our parents, Dr. Patricia Chen and Dr. James Chen, both psychology professors at the local university, documented everything with the intensity of scientists studying lab rats. Zoe's vocabulary is advancing faster than Maya's, my mother would note, speaking about us like we weren't standing right there. But Maya shows superior motor skills development. They had charts, actual charts, comparing our progress in different areas posted on the refrigerator for everyone to see. Maya was ahead in athletics, I was ahead in academics, Maya was more social, I was more creative. Every single aspect of our development was tracked, measured, and compared. It's fascinating how two genetically identical individuals can develop such different strengths, my father would tell colleagues who visited our house. We're documenting everything for our research. Research. That should have been my first clue that something was very wrong. The competition extended to everything. We had separate birthday parties because each girl deserves to be special on her day. We were enrolled in different classes at school to encourage individual development. We were given different chores, different bedtimes, different rules. Maya needs more structure, my mother would explain when Maya got an earlier bedtime. Zoe is naturally more self-disciplined, but the next week it would flip. Suddenly Maya was the responsible one who got privileges, and I was the one who needed more supervision. The rules changed constantly, but one thing remained consistent. We were never allowed to be close to each other. Twins who rely too heavily on each other fail to develop independent identities, my father would lecture when he caught us playing together. You girls need to learn to be individuals. So we became individuals, all right. We became strangers who happened to share DNA and a house. Maya gravitated towards sports and rebellion. She was loud, impulsive, and seemed to thrive on attention. Any attention, even negative. I became the quiet, studious one who tried to earn approval through perfect grades and flawless behavior. Our parents ate it up. They'd pit us against each other constantly, praising one of us while criticizing the other for the exact same behavior. Maya, your passion is admirable, my mother would say after Maya got in trouble for arguing with a teacher. Zoe, you need to learn to show more initiative like your sister. Then the next week, Zoe, your self-control is exceptional. Maya, why can't you think before you act like your sister does? We learned to see each other as threats instead of allies. When Maya succeeded at something, I felt personally diminished. When I achieved something, Maya would find ways to sabotage it or dismiss it as unimportant. Zoe thinks she's so smart with her perfect grades, Maya would mutter when I made honor roll. But she's just a teacher's pet with no real friends. At least I don't get suspended for fighting, I'd shoot back when Maya got in trouble. Some of us know how to control ourselves. Our parents would just observe these exchanges with what I now recognize as scientific fascination. They were studying us, documenting how their manipulation affected our relationship and development. High school made everything worse. Maya found her crowd with the popular athletes, while I gravitated toward the academic overachievers. We barely spoke to each other at school, and at home, we existed in separate worlds. It's normal for teenage twins to differentiate, my mother would tell concerned relatives. They're finding their individual identities. But it wasn't normal. What was normal about two sisters who couldn't have a conversation without it turning into a competition? What was normal about twins who actively avoided each other? The breaking point came during our senior year. Maya had been struggling academically while I was being recruited by several prestigious colleges. The disparity in our achievements was wider than ever, and my parents' commentary was more pointed than usual. Zoe's scholarship offers are quite impressive, my father announced at dinner one night. It's rewarding to see academic excellence being recognized. Maya stabbed at her food angrily. Not everyone wants to spend their life buried in books. No, my mother agreed. But some people understand that education opens doors that athletics can't. It was a deliberate provocation designed to start a fight, and it worked. Are you saying I'm stupid? Maya demanded, standing up from the table. No one said you were stupid, my father replied calmly. But you have to admit that your choices have consequences. What choices? Choosing not to be a boring perfectionist like Zoe? I should have defended myself, or better yet, defended Maya against their obvious manipulation. Instead, I let my competitiveness take over. At least I have options for my future, I said coldly. What are you going to do after graduation? Peak in high school like every other jock? Maya threw her plate across the room, shattering it against the wall. I hate you, she screamed. I hate both of you. She stormed out, and I expected my parents to be upset about the broken plate, the yelling, the drama. Instead, they looked fascinated. Interesting reaction, my mother murmured, taking notes in a small notebook she'd pulled from her pocket. The academic child's success is clearly triggering intense emotional responses in the athletic child. That's when I first realized they were literally taking notes on us. But I was too caught up in feeling superior to Maya to process what that meant. Maya barely spoke to me for the rest of senior year. When I graduated valedictorian and got a full scholarship to MIT, she was noticeably absent from the graduation ceremony. When she barely graduated and had to take a gap year because she hadn't applied to any colleges, I felt vindicated rather than sympathetic. "You won," she said bitterly the night before I left for college. "Are you happy now?" "This was never about winning," I lied. "Everything's been about winning since we were born," she replied. "And you won. Congratulations." I went to MIT thinking I was finally free from the competition, finally able to just be myself without being compared to Maya. But college was harder than I expected. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the smartest person in the room. I wasn't special or remarkable. I was just another overachieving student struggling to keep up. My grades were good, but not exceptional. I made friends, but wasn't popular. I dated occasionally, but nothing serious developed. For someone who'd built their entire identity around being the smart twin, mediocrity was devastating. Meanwhile, Maya seemed to be thriving in my absence. She'd gotten a job at a fitness center and discovered a passion for personal training. She started taking community college classes and eventually transferred to a 4-year school with a sports medicine program. When I came home for Christmas freshman year, Maya looked confident and happy in a way I'd never seen before. She had friends, a boyfriend, and plans for the future. I felt like I was watching a stranger who happened to look exactly like me. "How's the genius life treating you?" she asked with less venom than usual. "It's good," I lied. "MIT is exactly what I expected." "That's great," she said, and she actually seemed to mean it. "I'm glad things are working out for you." The lack of competitiveness in her voice was unsettling. For 18 years, every interaction had been a battle. Now she seemed genuinely happy for my success, and I didn't know how to process that. It wasn't until I was home for spring break that I discovered the truth about our childhood. I was looking for my birth certificate for a summer internship application when I found a box of files in my parents' home office labeled Twin Study, Subjects A and B. Subjects. They'd labeled us as subjects. My hands shook as I opened the box. Inside were hundreds of pages of documentation spanning our entire lives. Behavioral observations, developmental milestones, psychological assessments, and detailed notes about their interventions in our relationship. Day 847. Subjects showing increased competition over parental attention. Introduced academic athletic binary to encourage role differentiation. Day 1203. Subject A, Zoe, displaying perfectionist tendencies. Subject B, Maya, showing oppositional behaviors. Praised Subject A for compliance while criticizing Subject B to reinforce patterns. Day 2056. Subjects avoid interaction unless competing for resources. Sibling bond appears successfully disrupted. Individual identity formation proceeding as hypothesized. Page after page of clinical observations about their own daughters. We weren't their children, we were their research project. The worst part was discovering that every major conflict, every competition, every moment of sibling rivalry had been deliberately orchestrated. They'd been running psychological experiments on us since birth, documenting how environmental manipulation could shape identical twins into completely different people. The Chen twin study, Environmental Factors in Identity Formation among Genetically Identical Siblings. That was the title of the research paper they'd submitted to multiple psychology journals using our childhood as data. They'd published our lives, our pain, our competition, our destroyed relationship. It had all been turned into academic research without our knowledge or consent. I found the published paper online that night. Reading the abstract was like looking at our childhood through a microscope. This longitudinal study examined how deliberate environmental manipulation could influence personality development in identical twin subjects. Through strategic interventions, including differential treatment, competitive frameworks, and controlled social isolation between subjects, researchers successfully created divergent personality profiles despite identical genetic material. They'd succeeded. They'd proven that identical twins could be turned into completely different people through manipulation. Maya and I were living proof of their hypothesis, but the study wasn't finished. I found their planned follow-up research in the same box. Long-term effects of induced sibling rivalry, a 20-year analysis. They intended to keep studying us through adulthood, documenting how their childhood interventions affected our careers, relationships, and eventual families. We were going to be lab rats forever. I confronted them the next morning, throwing the research papers on the kitchen table while they drank their coffee. "What the hell is this?" I demanded. My parents looked at each other, then at the papers, their expressions unreadable. "You weren't supposed to find those," my mother said calmly. "That's your concern? That I found them?" My voice was shaking with rage. "You've been experimenting experimenting on us our entire lives. We've been documenting natural developmental processes, my father corrected. Everything we did was within normal parenting parameters. Normal parenting parameters? You deliberately turned us against each other. You manipulated us into competing for basic affection. We gave you both opportunities to excel in your individual strengths, my mother said. Many parents struggle to treat twins as individuals. We ensured you both developed distinct identities by destroying our relationship with each other. Your relationship with Maya was always secondary to your individual development, my father replied clinically. Excessive twin bonding can be detrimental to psychological growth. I stared at them in horror. Even now, caught red-handed, they were speaking about us like research subjects rather than their daughters. Did you ever love us? I asked quietly. Or were we always just an experiment to you? My mother's face softened slightly. Of course we love you both. Everything we did was to help you become successful, independent individuals. You published a paper about our childhood trauma without our consent. We used pseudonyms, my father said, as if that made it better. No one could identify you from the study. We could identify us. Maya and I lived through this. We know it's about us. They looked genuinely puzzled by my distress, as if they couldn't understand why I was upset about being unknowingly used as a research subject for 18 years. Your reaction is quite interesting, my mother said, reaching for her ever-present notebook. The discovery of the study parameters is clearly triggering significant emotional responses. She was taking notes. Even now, in the middle of confronting them about their abuse, she was taking notes on my reaction. I grabbed the notebook and threw it across the room. Stop studying me. I'm not your subject anymore. Zoe, please calm down, my father said in his clinical voice. Let's discuss this rationally. Rationally? You want to discuss rationally how you psychologically manipulated your own children for research purposes? We provided you both with excellent opportunities for growth and development, my mother insisted. Look at your achievements. Look at Maya's confidence and athletic success. Our methods were effective. Your methods destroyed our relationship. Maya and I barely speak because you taught us to see each other as threats. Sibling relationships often normalize in adulthood, my father said dismissively. The important thing is that you both developed strong individual identities. That's when I realized they would never see what they'd done as wrong. In their minds, they were brilliant researchers who'd successfully proven their hypothesis. The fact that they'd sacrificed their daughter's relationship to do it was just the cost of scientific progress. I called Maya immediately after leaving their house. I need to see you, I said when she answered. It's about Mom and Dad. It's important. We met at a coffee shop near her apartment. I'd brought copies of all the research papers, all the documentation, everything I'd found in that box. I don't understand, Maya said after reading through the first few pages. What am I looking at? Our entire childhood, I said. Every fight we had, every competition, every time they compared us, it was all planned. They were studying us. Maya's face went white as she continued reading. They published this? Multiple journals. Our childhood trauma is required reading in developmental psychology courses now. Maya was quiet for a long time, reading through page after page of clinical observations about our lives. When she finally looked up, her eyes were filled with tears. They made us hate each other on purpose, she said softly. Yes. All those years I thought you were the favorite, they were just, what, testing variables? According to this, neither of us was the favorite. We were both just subjects in their experiment. Maya started crying then, really crying in a way I hadn't seen since we were small children. I wasted so many years hating you, she sobbed. I thought you were trying to make me look bad, trying to steal their attention, but we were both just being manipulated. I reached across the table and took her hand, the first physical affection we'd shared in years. I hated you too, I admitted. I thought you were just a troublemaker trying to make me look good by comparison. I didn't realize they were deliberately praising me to hurt you. Do you think we can fix this? Maya asked. Our relationship, I mean. Is it possible to undo 18 years of conditioning? I don't know, I said honestly, but I want to try. We started meeting regularly after that, trying to get to know each other as adults rather than the competitive children we'd been raised to be. It was awkward at first. We were essentially strangers despite sharing DNA and a childhood. I don't even know what you like, Maya said during one of our coffee dates. I know you're good at school, but what do you actually enjoy doing? I don't know either, I admitted. I've been so focused on being the smart one that I never figured out what I actually wanted. We both started therapy individually and eventually together. Dr. Sarah Williams, our family therapist, specialized in sibling relationships and was horrified when we explained our situation. What your parents did was a form of psychological abuse, she told us during one of our sessions. Using children as unknowing research subjects, deliberately damaging their relationship for scientific purposes, it's unethical on multiple levels. But we're both successful, Maya pointed out. I mean, their methods worked, right? Success doesn't mean you weren't harmed, Dr. Williams replied. You both developed coping mechanisms that helped you achieve external success, but at the cost of your relationship with each other and your ability to trust. She was right. Even as adults, Maya and I struggled to share achievements or vulnerabilities with each other. We'd been programmed to see each other as competitors, and that programming ran deep. When I got promoted last month, my first instinct was not to tell you, Maya admitted during one session. Part of me was afraid you'd find a way to diminish it. I do that, I said. When you succeed at something, I automatically start thinking about ways I'm still better than you in other areas. It's learned behavior, Dr. Williams explained. Your parents rewarded you for competing and punished you for cooperating. It's going to take time to unlearn those patterns. The hardest part was deciding what to do about our parents. We'd both confronted them about the research, but they remained convinced they'd done nothing wrong. Perhaps you girls should be grateful, my mother had said during one particularly frustrating conversation. Your childhood experiences made you both stronger, more resilient individuals. Our childhood experiences gave us both trust issues and an inability to maintain close relationships, I'd replied. That's temporary, my father had dismissed. Therapeutic intervention can address any lingering effects. They spoke about us getting therapy the same way they might discuss treating lab rats for stress after an experiment. Maya and I eventually decided to cut contact with them entirely. It was too damaging to keep interacting with people who saw us as research subjects rather than daughters. I feel guilty about it sometimes, Maya told me. They're still our parents. No, I said firmly. Parents love their children unconditionally. These people love the data we provided for their research. The decision to go no contact was validating but also terrifying. We'd spent our entire lives trying to earn approval from people who were incapable of giving it. Now we had to learn to validate ourselves and each other. I'm proud of you, Maya said one day after I told her about getting accepted to a PhD program. Really? I asked, still suspicious after years of conditioning. Really, your success doesn't diminish me. It makes me happy because you're my sister and I want good things for you. It was such a simple statement, but it represented years of therapy and conscious effort to reprogram our relationship. Maya and I grew closer over the following years, but the damage from our childhood couldn't be completely undone. We both struggled with intimate relationships, finding it difficult to trust partners or share vulnerabilities. I keep waiting for people to compete with me or use my weaknesses against me, I told Dr. Williams during individual therapy. That's how relationships worked in my family. Maya had similar issues. She'd gone through a series of relationships where she'd unconsciously recreated the competitive dynamics from our childhood. I pick partners who challenge me or try to one-up me, she admitted. Healthy, supportive relationships feel fake because they're not what I'm used to. Both of us eventually found stable relationships, but it took extensive therapy and very patient partners. Maya married her college boyfriend, Tom, who'd grown up in a large, cooperative family and couldn't understand sibling rivalry. I married David, a fellow psychologist who understood trauma responses and was willing to work through my trust issues. Your childhood taught you that love was conditional and finite, David explained after I'd had a panic attack about him congratulating a colleague on a promotion. You're afraid that if I'm proud of someone else, there won't be any pride left for you. He was right. Despite years of therapy, I still operated from a scarcity mindset where love and approval were limited resources that had to be competed for. The most painful realization came when Maya and I both decided we didn't want children. We were too afraid of unconsciously repeating the patterns from our childhood. What if I unconsciously favor one child over another? Maya worried. What if I turn my kids against each other the way mom and dad did to us? What if I'm so focused on avoiding their mistakes that I make different but equally damaging ones? I added. Dr. Williams assured us that our awareness of the patterns made us unlikely to repeat them, but we couldn't take the risk. The idea of potentially damaging children the way we'd been damaged was unbearable. It's like they killed our bloodline, Maya said sadly. They damaged us so badly that we can't trust ourselves to raise healthy children. When I was 28, I decided to research whether our case was unique or if other psychologist parents had used their children as research subjects. What I found was horrifying. There were dozens of documented cases of researchers using their own children in studies without consent. Some were famous experiments that were later deemed unethical, but many others had been conducted quietly and never questioned. The Chen twin study had been cited in over 200 academic papers. Our childhood trauma had become a cornerstone of modern developmental psychology research. Students around the world were learning about identity formation by studying what our parents had done to us. I found online discussions where graduate students debated the ethics of our case. The results were fascinating, but using your own children as unknowing subjects crosses ethical boundaries. But think about what we learned about environmental influences on development. The knowledge gained has helped thousands of other families. The ends don't justify the means. Those girls had their relationship destroyed for science. Reading strangers debate whether our childhood abuse was justified for the sake of scientific knowledge was devastating. Maya and I had become case studies, our pain reduced to data points in academic discussions. I started speaking at conferences about research ethics, using our story to highlight the importance of informed consent and the protection of vulnerable subjects. It was therapeutic in a way, taking control of our narrative and using it to prevent similar abuse. Children cannot consent to be research subjects, I would tell audiences of researchers and graduate students. When parents use their children as unknowing subjects in psychological studies, they are committing abuse regardless of the scientific value of the results. Maya joined me at some of these conferences, sharing her perspective on how the manipulation manipulation had affected her differently. I spent my entire childhood thinking I was the problem child, she would tell audiences. I thought my parents' disappointment in me was natural and deserved. Finding out it was manufactured for research purposes was almost more traumatic than the original treatment. Our story started gaining attention in psychology circles. Some researchers defended our parents' work, arguing that the knowledge gained justified the methods. Others called for a complete reevaluation of how the field approached research involving children.
The Chen twin study should be retracted, wrote one prominent child psychologist in a scathing editorial. Research conducted without informed consent, using the researchers' own children as subjects, and resulting in documented psychological harm has no place in legitimate academic literature. But other researchers disagreed. While the methods were unconventional, the results have contributed significantly to our understanding of identity formation. We cannot ignore valuable data simply because we disapprove of how it was obtained. Maya and I watched from the sidelines as the academic world debated our childhood. It was surreal seeing our lives dissected by strangers who spoke about us like we were historical figures, rather than living people still dealing with the consequences of our parents' research. Sometimes I feel like we're still their experiment, Maya said after reading a particularly heated academic debate about our case. Even now, people are studying us and arguing about us. She was right. By speaking out about our experiences, we'd inadvertently ensured that our story would continue to be analyzed and discussed. We'd escaped our parents' direct control, but we were still subjects of academic fascination. The final confrontation with our parents came when I was 30. They'd written a follow-up paper about the long-term outcomes of their research, documenting our adult lives and relationships through information they'd gathered from social media and mutual acquaintances. 20-year follow-up, Adult Functioning in Subjects of Early Environmental Manipulation, was the title of their new paper. They'd tracked us without our knowledge and published details about our careers, relationships, and psychological struggles. I filed a complaint with their university's ethics board and threatened legal action if they didn't cease all research activities involving Maya and me. The university launched an investigation into their research practices and eventually censured both of them for conducting unethical research. We stand by our work, my father said when the censure was announced. The scientific community has benefited enormously from our research. The scientific community benefited from our suffering, I replied during the ethics hearing. You destroyed your daughter's relationship and documented our pain for academic gain. You're both successful adults, my mother argued. Our methods were effective in developing your individual potentials. Our success happened despite your abuse, not because of it, Maya said firmly. And our inability to trust, to form close relationships, to feel secure in love, those are the real results of your experiment. The university stripped them of their tenure and prohibited them from conducting any further research involving human subjects. Several journals issued corrections about the ethical concerns surrounding their published work, but the damage was done. Maya and I would never fully recover from what they'd done to us. We'd built a relationship as adults, but it was constructed on the ruins of the childhood bond they deliberately destroyed. I love you, Maya told me on our 35th birthday, the first birthday we'd celebrated together since childhood. I love you too, I replied, and I meant it. But it was the love of two adults who'd chosen to care for each other, not the instinctive bond that twins should have shared. Do you think we would have been different if they'd just let us be normal sisters? Maya asked. I think we would have been happy, I said. I think we would have supported each other instead of competing. I think we would have been best friends. I grieve for the relationship we never got to have, Maya said softly. Me too. We were successful women by any external measure. Maya had built a thriving fitness business and was happily married. I had my PhD and a fulfilling career in research ethics, but we both carried invisible wounds from our childhood, scars that would never fully heal. Some types of parental manipulation create damage that therapy can manage but never fully repair. When parents deliberately pit siblings against each other, when they turn love into a competitive resource, when they use their own children as unknowing research subjects, they create wounds that last a lifetime. Maya and I learned to love each other as adults, but we could never reclaim the childhood bond our parents stole from us. We could never fully trust that relationships were safe, that love didn't have to be earned, that success didn't diminish others. Our parents had proven their hypothesis. Identical twins could be shaped into completely different people through environmental manipulation. But the cost of their scientific success was two daughters who would spend their entire lives recovering from the experiment that was their childhood. And somewhere in academic libraries around the world, the Chen twin study continues to be cited and referenced. Our childhood trauma reduced to data points in the pursuit of scientific knowledge. We escaped our parents' direct control, but in a way, we'll always be their subjects, forever defined by the experiment that that was our lives. The most tragic part is that they succeeded completely. They wanted to prove that identical twins could be turned into different people, and they did. Maya and I shared DNA but became strangers. We shared a house but lived separate lives. We shared parents but received completely different messages about our worth. They won their experiment, published their papers, and advanced their careers. The only thing they lost was their daughters, but in their minds, that was an acceptable sacrifice for the sake of scientific progress. Some wounds never heal. Some damage can't be undone. Some types of bad parenting create scars that last forever, no matter how much therapy you get or how much you understand about what happened to you. Maya and I built a relationship anyway, but it was built on the ashes of what we could have been.